Finn and the Wicklow Enchanted Lakes. The air in the Wicklow Mountains had a different feel to it. It was crisp and cool, carrying the scent of pine needles and wet granite. Below the rolling hills, the great Lough Tay, a jewel-like lake often called the Guinness Lake for its dark, peaty waters, lay shrouded in a mystical, swirling mist. This was a place where old magic lingered, a place Finn, the young druid, knew intimately. Finn, now 12 years old, was no longer a stranger to the forest's secrets. He moved with the quiet confidence of a boy who could speak to the trees and feel the emotions of the earth. His long, wavy chestnut hair, a tangle of sun-kissed brown and the occasional silver thread of mist, was often adorned with tiny wild mountain flowers. His emerald green eyes, however, no longer held only the innocent wonder of a child. They now possessed a deep, knowing light, reflecting the wisdom of the ancient forest spirits he so often conversed with. He wore his familiar tunic, a patchwork of natural greens and browns, but it was now a little more worn, its simple leaf embroidery faded by many a mountain rain. His leaf-colored cloak, a comfort against the chill, was fastened with a small, intricately carved bone clasp, a gift from a wise owl who had watched over him. His wooden staff, once smooth, was now grooved and textured from countless journeys, its animal and leaf carvings polished by his touch. The day had started like any other. The sun was rising, a pale golden orb fighting its way through the persistent Wicklow fog. Finn had set out from his moss-covered cottage, the smell of damp earth and wood smoke clinging to his clothes. He was heading towards the shore of Lough Tay, the Guinness Lake, whose dark waters held an ancient, slumbering magic. His mission was simple: to make an offering of fresh spring water and wildflowers to the lake spirit, a tradition passed down through generations of druids. As he walked, the wind, a playful, chilly companion, tugged at his cloak. It carried with it not just the mountain scent, but a different, more somber note, the metallic tang of something unnatural, something out of place. Finn felt a tremor in the earth, not a powerful jolt, but a subtle, sickening shudder, like a quiet groan from a very old, very tired giant. He broke through a cluster of gorse bushes, their bright yellow flowers a sharp splash of color in the muted landscape. The sight that greeted him stole the air from his lungs. The surface of Lough Tay, usually a deep, tranquil obsidian, was now a pale, sickly green. Patches of oily, dark purple film floated listlessly on the water, and along the shoreline, the lush green reeds were drooping, their tips stained a dull, unnatural brown. A profound, aching silence had fallen over the area. No birdsong, no rustle of small creatures. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Finn's heart pounded a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He felt the lake's pain as a searing, cold ache in his own chest. It was a cry for help, a silent scream from a dying giant. The air around the lake, once fresh and pure, now held a faint, bitter scent, like decaying mushrooms and rust. The lake spirit, a powerful and ancient being, was in distress. Kneeling at the edge of the water, Finn dipped his hand in. The water was unnaturally warm, and a strange, tingling sensation ran up his arm, a mixture of cold dread and buzzing foreign energy. It was a poison, a dark magic seeping into the lake's very heart. He looked at the offering in his other hand, a small wooden bowl of clear spring water and a handful of wildflowers. They felt useless, pathetic against this great, dark force. He looked around, his keen eyes scanning the desolate shoreline. There had to be a source, a place where this darkness was seeping into the water. His senses, sharpened by years of druid training, picked up a faint, sickly sweet scent that grew stronger to his left. He scrambled to his feet, following the trail. The soft, spongy ground beneath his sandals was now strangely hard and dry, the moss turning to brittle powder with every step. The scent led him to a small, hidden stream that trickled down from a higher spring. But the water in this stream was no longer crystal clear. It was a murky, grayish-brown liquid, thick and oily. It was flowing into Lough Tay, carrying with it the dark magic that was poisoning the lake. Finn knew he had to act quickly. But what could a single druid boy do against such a dark, powerful magic? He felt a new voice in his head, not a gentle whisper from the wind, but a raw, frantic cry from the water itself. The lake spirit, desperate and fading, was calling to him, begging him for help. His new journey had just begun. The sickly, sweet scent of decay led Finn away from the shore, climbing a steep, rocky path. Each step crunched on the brittle, dead moss, a sound like 1,000 tiny bones breaking. The air, once filled with the fresh scent of mountain herbs, now tasted of bitter, metallic dust. The wind, which had been his guide, now seemed to pull away, sighing in despair as it left the poisoned air behind. He reached a small, hidden gorge. A stream, a once beautiful silver thread of water, now cascaded down the rocks in a sluggish, brownish-gray torrent. It didn't babble or gurgle. It just seeped, a thick, greasy liquid that clung to the smooth, black stones. At the top of the gorge, from a crack in the granite face, an oily, iridescent fluid was oozing out, dripping with a sickening plop, plop, plop into the stream below. This was the source of the poison. Finn felt a wave of nausea, the dark magic so potent here that it felt like a heavy weight pressing on his chest. He looked at the crack, a jagged wound in the mountain skin, and instinctively knew this was no natural occurrence. This was the work of a powerful, malevolent force, something that had sought to strike at the very heart of the Wicklow magic. He closed his eyes, his hands resting on his wooden staff. He began to hum, a low, resonant note that vibrated through his staff and into the stone beneath his feet. He was calling on the mountain spirits, on the ancient strength of the granite. He felt a response, a deep, rumbling presence, a feeling of immense age and power. "Who has done this?" he whispered to the mountain. The answer came not in words, but in a flash of images in his mind. A tall, shadowy figure with a face obscured by a dark hood, its hands glowing with a malevolent purple light. The figure was driving a spike of cold, dark energy deep into the crack, into the very veins of the mountain. It was an act of pure malice, intended to poison the heart of the land. Finn's blood ran cold. This was not a simple curse. It was a deliberate, targeted attack on the source of the lake's magic. He knew he couldn't simply heal the wound. The dark magic was too deep, too powerful. He needed something more, something to counteract the poison at its source. He remembered a whispered legend from his druid elders, the Heartstone of Wicklow, a mythical stone said to be located at the highest peak of the mountains, a place of pure, unblemished magic. It was said to have the power to purify the land and repel any darkness. The journey was long and perilous, a pilgrimage that few druids had ever attempted. But Finn knew, with a certainty that settled in his bones, that this was his only choice. He turned and began to climb, leaving the poisoned gorge behind. As he ascended the mountain, the air grew clearer, the scents of pine and damp earth returning. The sounds of nature, which had been so silent by the lake, slowly began to return. A tiny bird, its feathers a flash of brilliant blue, sang a hopeful song from a nearby crag. The wind, his loyal friend, once again joined him, its cool breath a gentle encouragement on his face. The path was steep, the wind fierce, and the rocks sharp under his sandals. But Finn pressed on, his emerald-green eyes fixed on the distant, misty peaks. He was no longer just a boy making an offering. He was a guardian on a sacred quest. The weight of the lake's sorrow was heavy on his heart, but the hope of finding the Heartstone was a bright, burning light that guided his every step.